think most everything has been said, and there are not a lot of folks in this room that perhaps need to be convinced of the merits of right to work. Let me just add a couple of points from the standpoint of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, which represents the interest of more than 60,000 employers in this state. Among business people, right to work is an obvious step that Kentucky needs to make. It's not a labor bashing sentiment. It's a matter of how friendly is a state to doing business and creating jobs. And I think it's really remarkable what's been said here today, especially by the judge, when he pointed out that, you know, in Washington, everything gets polarized. You know, if a good idea comes up, somebody says, well, did our team come up with that, or did their team come up with that? And then they all divide it. A little bit of that in Frankfurt, not as bad, but there's some of that in Frankfurt too. So in the meantime, if Frankfurt is going to debate this issue ad nauseum, counties need to move ahead, because counties are there to create the economic opportunity for their citizens, and they can move in this direction. I think it's very interesting that this has bubbled up along the Tennessee border to a great extent, because they feel the competition every day. So in the business community, I mean, it's practically in the realm of slam dunk in terms of this being something that needs to be done. I would come at it from a second perspective too, and that's kind of the Hal Guth perspective. I'm a former economic developer. 25, 30 years ago, I was in charge of recruiting jobs to my community of Owensboro. And I woke up in the morning, went to bed at night thinking about how great it would be if that prospect I've been working with for 2 years from Michigan would go ahead and make their decision, and I could call my mayor and call my judge and say they want to go ahead, they're really willing to make a commitment, they're going to create 50 jobs or 100 jobs or 200 jobs. That's families. I translated that to families that would be helped. And I know that we lost prospects in Owensboro, Kentucky, because Kentucky is not a right-to-work state. I am absolutely convinced that this state is losing several thousand jobs per year because we're not designated right-to-work. One other little anecdote, being from Owensboro, I spent a few years out of state. I was president of the Birmingham, Alabama Chamber of Commerce for 6 or 7 years. Loved it, had a great experience, and then the Kentucky Chamber invited me back here 10 years ago. While I was there, Alabama and Kentucky competed for a major industry that is now in Alabama. I am absolutely convinced. I was not on the recruiting team because I was in Birmingham, but my friends were leading that recruitment effort. I'm absolutely convinced right to work was a factor. I've heard that from company representatives, and I've heard that from the local folks who were doing the recruiting. Every time they opened their mouth, they mentioned, oh, and by the way, business people, Kentucky's not right to work. Now, was it a factor? Absolutely. It was a factor in that decision. Was it the factor? I'm not going to debate that. I wasn't in the room. Other things like workforce incentives and on, and the economic development folks here, I think, would confirm that. Sure, education workforce is absolutely important. Utilities, tax rates, all that sort of thing are important. But right to work is a factor that could be enacted in this state with no state appropriation, no money. But with that not happening, Kentucky counties need to move ahead. And I'm so excited that Warren County, Simpson, the others have moved in that direction. And you're sending a signal to Frankfurt. And I think it will eventually have its impact that we intend. The fact that this has been enacted in a bipartisan sense on the local level, I think, is one of the key takeaways today. That things get polarized in Washington, somewhat in Frankfurt. At home, we're worried about jobs and whether or not somebody can go to the grocery or buy Christmas presents or send their kids to college. And that's what this is all about. So thanks for inviting me here. I appreciate being with these distinguished folks, and let's see this thing move forward.